Hi, and welcome to Spiritual Alchemy Energy Transfigurations, the podcast with Julie Ann Guthrie-Smulson. Tonight, we are doing a discussion about sacred femininity. And by the way, this podcast intentions is to invite guests on to share their light, what they do to bring light to the world. So I am going to unmute my guests, and we're going to do an introduction with Alyssa first, and then we'll do Keia.
Okay, yeah, hello everybody back. I'm so grateful to connect with each and everyone here in this amazing podcast that Julie's creating. My name is Alyssa. I'm mainly a holistic healer, which means like I'm working with people to really unlock their highest potential and healing wounds and healing trauma. I'm very passionate about working with women and working with womb healing and different forms of feminine alchemy. And I'm also an Akashic Record practitioner, so I help people to connect to their Akashic Records. And I also teach people how they can open and access their own Akashic Records. So, yeah, and I'm here today to talk everything related about sacred femininity and the divine feminine rising.
And now, Keia.
So beautiful. I'm also very honored to be here, and thank you for the invitation. And what a great joy it is to bring these alternative medicines and alternative practices to so many people. And thank you, Julie, for creating this page, this podcast, and spreading the message and allowing me to be here to share. I am also a board certified holistic health practitioner, and I'm a psychic medium. And I work in several modalities, mostly facilitating sacred ceremonial work. I work with plant medicines, holistic modalities, vibrational therapies, and also intuitive gifts to, help many people work through, particularly through trauma in the body, and to heal and kind of really learn how to embody a life that's empowered in access of their own divinity, their own sovereignty, through practical modalities, alternative modalities, and also very sacred shamanic practices as well. I consider myself a medicine woman initiated into the path of offering these different modalities to ceremony, and it's my highest calling, and I'm just so honored to even be on this path. Alyssa is actually one of my teachers, and she's mentored me through the Akashic Records, and I love her so much, so it's really an honor to be here with her and with you, Julie. So thank you guys so much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you so much for coming on tonight. I am honored. So my first question when I was talking to Alyssa about this is why separate the sexes in healing, because I'm a healer myself. And I mean, maybe I have this skewed perception, but everybody has emotional healing, whether you're a man or a woman. And so I was talking to one of my gay friends, and he's like, well, what about my feminine healing? I go, well, you don't have the same parts, So I don't know if you can address that.
Love to speak on that.
Okay, go.
Yeah, so basically when we talk about feminine healing, it is never exclusive. So it's not, oh, only women receive healing and men not. It's really more about, if you think about like ancient tribes and really high developed ancient cultures, they would have woman circle and they would have man circle. And that is just because like each one of us, like each one of the different genders have different, I want to say like lessons in life to learn and different things to master. So on the path to self-mastery, we need to work with what we are. So for example, women have a lot of creative energy in their womb space and in their ovaries, and they have different gifts to bring into the community. And women are going through cycles and moon cycles, and there's so much to learn about that, so much more than we learn in school. There's so much more about it. And women go through motherhood, women go through all of these different things, and it's really important that we can educate ourselves about it and educate the young women and educate the communities about these things, so that we can feel empowered in ourselves, and so that we can feel like we know about our bodies and we know about why we are bleeding, for example. Like, we know about all of these different things, and it's not exclusive at all, because like for men there's so much wisdom and knowledge as well. And I'm like really holding the vision of man circles, and I mean, I cannot lead a man circle because I don't know, like I don't have the knowledge.
You don't have the parts.
But yeah, I really see like the power of both. Yeah.
Did you want to add to that, Keia?
Yeah, I've been involved in doing sacred feminine alchemy for about 4 years now. I host new moon circles in Reno, Nevada, called the Wild Woman Rising. And working primarily with women for this many years, exactly what Alyssa said, there's many different components when it comes to specific physical 3D world, tangible working of medicine, healing, forgiveness, and different alchemy practices. But when we're talking on a very metaphysical level, a lot of this is really about every single being carries both masculine and feminine energy. We're created to be in balance. And if we've looked to our society, looked to the world for a reflection of where we've been, it's been specifically very imbalanced in what we might often call the patriarchy. The masculine has been imbalanced and overpowering the feminine. And when doing sacred feminine work in particular, it's almost like you can kind of even see it in the body, where we're so busy, we're doing the action forward. The action moving forward is a very masculine, driving, solar type energy. And the feminine is about the softening and receiving, the ability to heal. So when we're talking about if men specifically, or transgender or gay or any sexual identity, is asking these, very polarity questions, like, why not me? Where do I fit in? It's all within each and every single one of us, right? And I actually am really excited because, like Alyssa too, I've been hearing a lot from, spirit and prayer and meditation, that it really is time that the women have been awakening. The women have been doing this work. It's very much the rise of like the wild woman archetype. The different archetypes of women have been rising for a while now. And my personal belief in my own experience is that the women have done this work first because we are the ones that are going to be able to hold the space for the great solar energies of the masculine who also have their time. Now, that's where we've been like this with the polarity. The feminine rises, the masculine rises. It's that teeter-totter till we come into balance, right? So that's kind of how I see it. And I personally have shifted a lot of my work to, even with the Wild Rising, that we're starting up men's circles now here in Reno, and also like opening up my circles to bring them online so I can offer services to both all genders, all identifications, because it's time. We're meant for evolution. And yeah, like I've enjoyed my time working specifically with women, and I get to do that still, and I get to do other things. So I'm definitely also, like Alyssa, not going to be leading the men's circles, but like helping to find and encourage, men that are ready and wanting and desirous to do these things. And I feel like we're at a time where we're navigating these titles and these identities and gender personifications in so many ways. And really, it's about that great honor and respect of every single being. Every single being is divine and holy and sacred in their own right. And no one is ostracized from this work, whether you're a man or a woman. These energetic practices, like even talking with like womb work, even if you're not a woman, going energetically, there is that energetic space of creation, the sacral chakra, and there's that womb space, the hara, different energy points that are located in both man and woman and any gender. And so, yeah, I really feel like it makes my heart a little sad to hear that this person felt, discluded. But I hope that maybe some of, what I share today can kind of offer that invitation that we're all in this together. And yeah, we're all learning how to do this together too.
Right. So what brought you specifically to feminine healing? What was your catalyst that took you there?
I have like one little thing I would really like to share. It's not related to the question, but more to the topic before. And that is, so like when we talk about women circles and man circles, and then there are like beings and humans who have both inside of them so strong that they don't know which gender they belong to. And I just want to say that like in native traditions, these were very sacred people. So they're called two spirits and they have very special roles in ceremonies. So like it's not exclusive at all. It's more like, okay, they are kind of like the ones who are bringing it all together and holding both of them, and that's a very special role.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So what was the catalyst that brought you to feminine healing? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Alyssa, are you going to answer?
Should I start? Okay. Well, I think it started. I was receiving like these visions about the womb and the womb of life and the womb of humanity. And in my visions, I saw how all of the creative power, all of the memory of all of life, like all of this like very powerful codes are held within this like collective womb space. Like we have a collective energy, collective consciousness. We have this collective womb space. But then I saw all of this like energies that are like on the collective womb space and kind of like distorting the field. And then spirit was showing me that part of my role on earth is to clear these energies and to make the space like be clear again, because the truth is that womb is the energy of creation. Like this is the prayer of giving life. And even if we never have a child, it's not so much about having a child or not, it's more about literally the energy of creation. So if we are in service, if we create a project, a business, art piece, or like whatever it is that we create, like we create it from this womb space.
Right.
And yeah, and if this creation is distorted, all of our actions are distorted. So I personally feel that like the working with the energetic womb space of the earth and of humanity is one of the most important work that we can do as woman and as man.
Okay, what was your catalyst that brought you to womb healing or feminine healing, excuse me?
It started off with, it was a lot more visceral and a physical experience. In 2006, I started having just random symptoms happening. I got diagnosed with mononeuropathy. I would get like numbness and tingling. And then it progressively got worse. I got diagnosed with anxiety. I started getting like palpitations. And then I was deeply into, a very Christian path at the time. But I kept getting like dreams and visions about like red tent stuff, women's work. And I kind of I didn't really listen. And I kept getting sicker until I ended up getting so ill, I got put into the hospital with a mysterious illness. And I ended up getting so sick that I got tachycardic. I lost the vision in my left eye. I was unable to speak. I was on bed rest. I was misdiagnosed with several different ailments like Addison's disease, Hashimoto's, a pheochromocytoma, major stuff, adrenal fatigue. And finally, like, it got to the point where I started like being fearful of my life. Mortality set in and I couldn't speak. I was bedridden and I was writing basically a power of attorney to hand over my kids when I died. And I was just so angry with the medical system and I was so afraid and full of fear. And I finally kept getting like all these messages, like synchronicities. And I started to finally like take a moment to just try to listen. And I watched a movie, The Red Tent, and I just felt like this longing in my soul of like, most of my friends at the time were guys. I was very much like a tomboy. I was very aggressive in nature. And I felt like this longing and desire for like comfort from a mom, an aunt, a grandmother, like what do I do? Like, I'm afraid, help me. And I'm going to cry. But I made an offering. Basically, I took a whole bunch of precious jewels of mine that I had, and I made an offering to Spirit. And I kind of said, I'm sorry, I want to live. Please help me. And I began scrolling on Facebook just randomly, and I found a moon circle. And when I went and arrived in the room, like, it was very like odd to me. I felt so uncomfortable, but we had to do like this belly dance like roll. And as I rolled my stomach and it hit like the womb space area, I literally dropped to the floor and started crying. I had woken something up in my body that I had not listened to my entire life. And from then on, I knew that I knew in my heart of hearts that this is my path. This is my path in service of the feminine rising, of the wild woman archetype. I attended new moon circles for about a year after that, and then I started my own.
Wow.
And just meeting all these women with the same things, the illnesses, that's what drove me into holistics and really like the empowerment. That feeling that disempowered in my life and that angry and that so full of fear, like, and having experienced traumas that I had, like, it became clear to me that was a solid initiation to be able to hold that space for so many other women. And that was kind of it. That's where it started.
Awesome. What an incredible story.
Whoa, yes.
Oh my goodness. So when someone seeks out sacred feminine healing, what is their catalyst? Are they ill, or are they looking for a sisterhood, or is it trauma?
I would love to answer this one. In my experience with the women that I've had the pleasure of working with, the most common things that people come are, one, community, seeking tribe, one seeking, and they're not even knowing what exactly there is. There's this desire to like find that home that they don't really know where this home is, just this like feeling of disconnection and not knowing where to go. Physically, I see the commonalities of it's usually immunosuppressant, immunodeficient symptoms from a vast array of them, and also menses problems, the disconnection between the blood flow. And that can either be heavy cramping, fibroids, clotting, missing their moon cycles completely, just incredibly painful and horrific stories from their PMS, premenstrual syndrome, even into like ovarian cancer, all kinds of things, cervical cancer. And I see these commonalities all revolving around the same things, the very trauma of that isolation, that disempowerment, that lack of community, especially when it comes to around being empowered with other women and sisterhood. And I don't want to say that's the primary root, but I feel that gets as close as it can with the lack of relationships and connections with our mothers, our aunts, our grandmothers, the community that we come from, like tribal ancestral backgrounds, all of us. I don't care if you're Northern, a Native American, or a South African, like it doesn't matter. We all come from tribal roots, truly, and across the planet. And so that's deeply ingrained in our DNA, and it's waking up, calling out for these things. Hence why people are, that's what I kind of attribute to the awakening process that people might mention in their searching. People don't change until the pain to change is worse than the pain to stay the same. And I don't know the author of that quote, but it's always stuck home with me.
The dog's like, yes.
Yep.
The universe has spoken.
Right. So, it's been painful the way we've been, and it's painful in isolation. It's painful in that disconnection. It's painful even being spiritually just disconnected, not empowered, and in a society where we've been brought up as women to be, accepting of our competition, our comparison, our judgment, our backbiting, our gossip, and to look at these very dark shadows within ourselves and like, yikes, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm part of the problem too. It's I can clear that energy and I can soften. And what do I really need? Like, oh, these things I put those walls up against are actually the very things I'm truly longing for. And now we're getting to a place where we're starting to soften and see that power rise as we begin to collaborate and work together. So super exciting.
So do you want to add to that, Alyssa?
No, that feels really complete.
Okay. Before we go on, can you explain what red tents are? And
go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, red tents are an ancient tradition. And it is mostly on the new moon that women come together from 3 different age groups. So the young women, who are the ones who are just starting their menstruation, then the mothers, or the like mid-aged women, and the grandmothers. And they would come together in new moon for different reasons, because the new moon is actually the time in the moon phase where the feminine energy is the most high. Because when we go into the forest on the new moon, we see that everything is dark. Everything is dark, which means that this is the mother. Like the darkness is the divine feminine energy when we close our eyes and we go completely inside. And it's just like pure stillness. It's like the energy of the womb space. The baby, when it's in the womb, it's only seeing darkness. So the new moon is this like time that connects us to the power of the womb. And another reason is because on the new moon, a lot of women have their menstruation, a lot of women bleed on the new moon. So that's why the time of the new moon is so special to come together. And in this red tent traditions, they would share about different knowledge and practices for femininity. So the grandmothers would share, the mothers would share, and the young women would share. And they would all sit together in a circle, creating sacred ceremony, sometimes going into like elevated states of consciousness, sometimes channeling, and enforcing their community. And basically what is happening when women come together in this space, it is this huge recharge. So like then they come out of the red tent and everybody's so recharged, which means that maybe the women are away for like 2 or 3 days in the tribe, right? But if they come back, like the whole tribe energy is amplified because the women bring in so much power. And the truth is that like honestly, like women hold the space in a family. If the woman is good, if the woman is healthy, the whole family is like flowing and in alignment, because she's like the middle of the community, or like the middle of the family who's holding it all together. And one thing to add that I want to add more is there's the red tent and then there's the rose tent. So the rose tent is for women before they are actually starting to bleed, before they're actually starting the menstrual cycle. And in the rose tent, they would share like other practices and forms of knowledge for young women, for like more young women. So yeah.
Keia.
I love this. Like, there's so many theories on where the red tent was born, where it derived from. There's some people that say that actual red tents never existed, that it's a metaphor. I can speak from what I know from my experience, is that I remember in school that being taught about indigenous ways, that the women, when they were on their moon flow, they were cast out of the tribes or out of the communities. Not even just indigenous, in many different cultures even, they were cast out because they were considered dirty. Well, my work with the Lakota nations and the Teton nations, I was taught by the grandmothers there, who actually taught what we could consider still to this day a red tent, but it would be a separate teepee, and that the women did actually not attend inter-community ceremonies such as sweat lodges and prayer circles and things of that nature, but they went to this separate teepee. And so when the grandmothers were teaching me about this, they said, we'll go to one and they'll show you. And in this teepee, or this separate tent, this is where, like Alyssa said, these were where the stories of the women's medicine was shared, where the woman was allowed to free bleed into the earth and be held and cleansed and witnessed by the grandmothers and the mothers. Their bodies would be cleaned and their hair would be rebraided and washed. But it was believed, like spiritually speaking, that the women weren't cast out. In fact, they were considered so powerful, they were asked not to be a part of the ceremonies because the men were actually afraid of our ability to steal the power of the prayers. And so we were asked, we had our own tent, our own teepee, our own space to actually pray together. And so we would have our own sweat lodges because of the power of our prayer, because our lower mouth, our portal, our cervix is open. And the essence, the blood, the power of the blood and the release and the cleansing of energies is actually bled back into the earth, giving Mother Earth back what no longer serves. And we can get even deeper into the alchemy of what all that means and looks like later. But that, in considering red tent, in my understanding, it's a term. And like Alyssa said, there's many terms in different cultures, like the rose tent, the red tent, the women's tent, the women's teepee, in Scandinavian or Finnic roots, like in my blood heritage line, you Greylick peoples, they would actually have saunas, and we would go into a sauna, almost our own sweat lodge that you consider nowadays, and do the same practices. It was considered a time of birthing, a time of bleeding, and a time of dying. And that's where sweat lodges, a lot of the times, kind of have been passed along from Siberia and moving into like our current day reality. Like it's really such a in-depth thing, and it's meant to evolve in my mind, in my understanding. And so we get to choose what that red tent really is going to look like for us in this new world, in our new line. So we can take this extrapolated wisdom from the past and we get to redefine it in what we need now. And so I really love the empowerment of believing that the red tent in this way is us coming together, like metaphorically speaking, to have these very discussions. So yeah, you can consider this very podcast its own red tent. So yeah.
Exactly. Woo woo. I think there's some men watching though.
Welcome, boys.
So you're going to get educated. So watch out for your women. So if I were to come to either one of you for sacred feminine healing, what might that look like? I mean, I could tell you got some traumas. So, where would you start?
Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Okay, yeah. So like the best thing, like I love women's circles because there's so many distortions over the years through society with sisterhood, and I feel like women's circles are one of the most powerful things to heal. Totally, like he and I are doing also retreats together. Right now we are focusing more on like medicine retreats for women and men, but we will also do women retreats in the future again. And these are like 100% life changing. Like we had women come, like a lot of the women who come like change the menstrual cycle or they heal like really potent things. A lot of like crazy things happen in the retreat. So for that, yes. And like one by one, personally, the way that I work is really intuitive and like really going deep into the other person. So I would say like just like reaching out and having a conversation about what exactly you want to heal, and then we find the best modality and the best way to bring you to this goal. But it's like 100% intuitive and very, very deep work too. And then there are like other practices that like everyone can do. I personally also work with the medicine of the Yoni obsidian eggs. So these are powerful, powerful tools coming from the ancient Mayan traditions. And what it basically is, so it's like an obsidian egg, as the name says, and you put it in your yoni before you go to sleep. And so the stone is working with you in your dream time, and it is purifying and cleaning the womb. It is cleaning the womb from even like really deep ancestral stuff. And whatever like energies are held there are going to be transformed, because the power of the obsidian is to absorb absorb negative energy and to transform it. For that, for healers and for medicine people, the obsidian is like one of the most powerful like stones that you can like have in your altar, because it is working with the shadows. It's not like running away from the shadows. The obsidian is really like showing the shadows and transmuting it. So many women experience when they are working with it that they have very powerful dreams, like almost lucid dreams, and a lot of messages and a lot of information is being revealed in the dreams. And it helps for everything that is related to the womb space, as well as provides emotional healing, mental stability, grounding, and physical healing, as well as sexual healing as well, because you work with your sexual organs in a conscious and healing way, which heals that realm as well. Another practice that really like everyone can do is ovarian breathing. So the ovaries are producing the egg, and the egg of life is basically the egg that holds all of the information of all of creation. So it is one of the most potent and most powerful energies in our body, the egg. And through ovarian breathing, we are sourcing the energy of the ovaries and we are recirculating it into our entire system. So we're using this like potent life force from the ovaries to actually be circulated in our whole system, which brings us like good health, vitality, up to, I personally believe, immortality. Like we can get really old if we are holding our practice and keeping ourselves healthy. What else? And I think like Keia wanted to talk about that too a little bit more, but like really, really powerful working with the energies of the cycle, seeing the cycle as a gift, because truly that's what it is. Like it's one of the most sacred times in the month where we are bleeding, and one of the most important things is to give the blood back to the earth. There is a Hopi prophecy that says that once the women are starting to give the blood back to the earth, this is where humanity is going to be healed, because we use the most powerful essence of life that we have to pray for the highest good of all of humanity. And well, there's like so much to talk about it, but one thing that is happening if you give the blood to the earth is that the womb is sad basically, because like the new life is not born. So if you give the blood back to the earth, it can recycle again. And because the blood is one of the most potent and most healing elixirs, and literal like on a three-dimensional physical level, like very nourishing, if you give it to the earth, it is one of the best things for the earth. And that's also how we can heal the earth as well.
Keia, did you want to add?
Yeah, I there's so much. Like when I work with people, yeah,
3-hour podcast.
Yeah, when I work with women that would come to me for a session, it's I like to work with a practice of like balance of the mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical. So like it starts off, like let's feel safe with each other. Make sure that I'm the one, that you feel safe with me. And so it's a lot of like just taking the time, really not rushing. I'm not into the 1 hour, like you have an hour to work with me. My sessions are very general of 2 to 4 hours. And it's just one price for the entire time, because everyone's unique and everyone's individual and has their own needs and desires. Asking a few preliminary questions. One of the things that I go to with women most first is, how is your cycle? And what is it that you're seeking? And finding these things, it becomes very intuitive from that way, through reading energy and doing energy work, to being able to see into the subtle body and see into that with my clairsenses, what is being asked. And that's something I operate with and move forward with. Let's work into trauma healing. When it comes to working with womb work specifically, this is where I find is a great starting point, because it's something that has like it's a 28-day cycle, and you can really start to track and get into what I call cyclical living. And it's where I'm a proponent of living this cyclical living in harmony with the moon and the nature and the elements, and really developing practices and empowering the person in front of me with certain practices. with working with the blood flow itself. I work with plant medicines, also obsidian, like yoni eggs. Also, I work with several different other stones in the yoni eggs, but it's a process with each woman. And mugwort is one of my favorite medicines that I'm currently helping women to rebalance or start or alleviate symptoms of PMS, cramping and bloating and the things of that nature. And yeah, energy healing. And also for me in my practice, it's a lot of trauma work. I find that when we can find that trauma and I can help guide that person to walk through it and to release that energetic blockage from their body, the body naturally comes into a more synchronistic alignment with their own vibrational frequency. And so it's not fighting and warring against itself, like going off balance. It really becomes back into harmonious flow, nice and easy. And so sometimes, clients will, be a few sessions. I've had incredible results with just one. There's the retreats that we offer to go way deep diving, like you want to talk ancestral stuff, karmic stuff, rise of different goddess, like alchemy and archetype stuff, empowerment. These retreats can be very powerful, and medicine retreats to even go deeper into the consciousness and release that shadow work. Also, like, yeah, there's I know, like, online stuff. I do the new moon circles. There's definitely different modalities, and I'm always like an open door, like reach out, feel free. Like, my cell phone number is not hidden. You can call me and just text like, hey, there's this thing, can I set up like a 30-minute consultation to see if we're good to work together? And so, like, yeah, I have these gifts and I feel that this is my calling and my path that I've dedicated my life to. So, like, I'm here in service, and it just brings me great pleasure to witness someone in front of me, like, have healing. Like, I get to witness them heal, and like I get to be a part of their journey. And so I don't think there's anything cooler on this planet than that to me, besides God, but or whatever you call it.
Healing is so rewarding.
Yeah,
in itself.
Everything.
That's awesome. Alyssa, did you want to address this comment?
No, I just want to say Keia is a master in trauma healing. So if you want to go like really deep, like specifically like related to trauma, I can really recommend that.
I might have to go to her. So not that I love you, and I'm going to see you in December. So we got work to do.
Oh yeah.
I have one other thing to add too, with regards to like the blood offerings. Like, when I first heard of that, it freaked me out. I was like, oh my gosh, what kind of cult did I get involved in? I was like super, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't know. Like, and I just want to I want to recognize and take a moment to everyone hearing that for the first time. Like, I just want to hold space, because it can be very intimidating to hear this language, to hear what it is. And really, like, in my perception, if you don't mind, Julie, if I could just add real quick.
Go ahead.
Energetically speaking, in a practice that I help women develop and work through in that blood offering, what it really is every month we shed our blood. And even if you're past the time of menses, we have a natural rhythm and cycle. And when we're working energy, like, I'm just going to share it with you. It's so beautiful. Like, every month before I know that I'm going to have my moon cycle, I like to take all the negative and stagnant energy that's in my body, in my house, in my family, and I like to draw it into my womb space, actually be expelled with my blood. I use what is called a diva cup. I don't use any unnatural products anymore. I've been in practice that. It's just this little silicone cup I put in my yoni. It collects the blood. I take it out and I pour it in a little jar. I felt super uncomfortable the first couple of times I ever did this, but I take this blood and I go out to the forest. I dig a little hole. I put some tobacco down and offerings or flowers or berries, and I pour the blood. And as I do, I release all that with prayer. Like, and I look at it as in this way, like, look at like compost, the pieces of like the banana or the eggshells, the pieces of food and stuff that we don't eat that we throw out. it becomes this beautiful compost that the soil can use for minerals and nutrition and regeneration. And when we take what doesn't serve us, all that leftover, that compost from energetically speaking in our lives, like the pain, the hurt, the stress, the turmoil, like even what's going on collectively in our society, and that inundation on our parasympathetic and nervous system, right? Drawing that into that blood, releasing that back to the earth like compost so that soil can regenerate. And I look at it in spiritual terms as like Mother Earth. It's like feeding her that compost to bring clear and new energy. And so just a very simple practice. It doesn't have to be super scary or woo-woo. And if you wanted like some help, Alyssa or I both can definitely work with you on a one-on-one individual basis. And I'm just going to speak from my heart. Like when I first heard of this, when I first learned about it, it took me about a year to like secretly play around with these things to see if like I felt comfortable in my own space. And it has become a poignant practice of mine now. And it's something that I love so dearly, that I can feel it viscerally in my body of cleansing and purification. And it connects me to Mother Earth. It connects me to the elements. It connects me to my cycle. It connects to the rhythm and harmony and balance of who I be in this expression as a woman walking this planet now. And so I just kind of wanted to like just honor you if that felt weird, or if like you're like, oh my God, these girls are talking about their blood. Like, I see you, I hear you, because it's a real thing. And yeah, and that Hopi tradition, that Hopi, prophecy, these prophecies, there's many prophecies happening and coming to fruition right now. And now's the time. So if you ever have, even if you have curiosity, just reach out to one of us for sure.
I had a question. Who are your offerings to? Is it to Mother Earth?
For me, yes, it is definitely. I make offerings to. I don't necessarily follow any like deities or gods. I have a belief that Mother Earth is who we are. We are Earth in herself. So it's definitely what I look to when I offer prayer and gratitude. I also honor in my path the Nuadal, and I honor the Lakota tradition. So I honor Father Sky, I honor the directions, I honor the four corners, I honor the sacred animals, I honor the sacred plants. And I like to also indulge in my like infatuation currently with, Ixchel, who is a medicine woman goddess of the Mayan culture. And in the wild woman archetype, I'm definitely in love with that, and the high priestess. And so I oscillate between those different energies and the lessons, and I extrapolate the wisdom that suits me and where I feel called. And I really believe in having the freedom that I get to do that just the way I want to and what I desire. So maybe you can find that freedom for whoever's listening to. Maybe you can find that freedom for you.
Awesome. Alyssa, did you want to add to that?
Yes, I would love to at this point use the space to talk a little bit more about the cycle, just because it's such an important topic. And I feel like one of the biggest things that society is blocking women from is to tell them or to spread this idea that our moon cycle, our menstruation, is in any way dirty, or that our blood that is coming out of ourselves is in any way dirty, because the truth is it's 100% not. So what is happening in the cycle, specifically in the first day, is we are cleansing, we're cleansing, we're cleansing, we're cleansing. And that's powerful, because like we as women, we're cleansing this one time a month. So it may be that you, I don't know, smell a little bit different or feel a little bit tired or like whatever, but that is a sacred process of cleansing, which means that the blood on the first day, it carries the things that your body is cleansing from. So some women work with their blood like in a specific way. Some women like to, you can even put it on the skin because it normally is very healing. You can paint with that and all of the different things. But on the first day of the moon cycle, you only give it to the earth, because there are this like things inside of the blood that your body is cleansing from. And then the second day is where you can use the blood to do like, like paintings, or like use it for medicine, or like whatever you want to do. Yeah, so the blood is super potent and powerful and energy. It is actually one of the most powerful energies of your body. It's like talking about the ovaries and the womb space. So for women, all of our chi, all of our life force is stored in the blood, in the moon blood, in the menstruation blood. For men, for example, on the other hand, they store all of their life force in their semen. And so, as women, when we are on our menstruation, one thing that we can do to work with the energy of the blood is to breathe from our womb space into our hearts. And then, when we continue to practice, one day we can breathe from our womb space and send the energy all the way up to the sky and to our third eye, and really opening our third eye. So, you can just breathe into the womb and breathe out from the heart. And in that way, what you do is that you move the energy up, up, up. And if you do this or like other practices like the ovarian breathing for a longer time and specifically more consistently, you will see that your cycles actually get a little bit more soft. And whatever PMS syndromes you have, they mostly like after practicing ovarian breathing or like the yoni obsidian egg, these syndromes are going to most of the time, I don't know, is dissolve the right word? Like just go away from your life.
Lesson.
Um, and the moon, the blood that is flowing out is going to be less because you work with the energy and you recirculate the energy of the blood into your body. And another thing that is just so freaking important, and it's not a part of our society, and so I really want to bring it in, is to rest.
Mm.
Rest at least the first day of the cycle. It's a sacred time to rest, which means that if you run even like 5 different businesses or like you have a family and you're like super busy, that's okay. But you need to know that if you just take this one day of rest on the first day of your cycle, I will promise you, you will have so much more energy for the rest of the month. So resting and really taking a day off if you can, or I'm traveling a lot, so like I do rest on my cycle. But if I need to go somewhere, I rest at least a couple of hours. Another good practice to do is free bleeding, like Keia talked about that too. So you would just like bleed directly into the earth, like without anything inside, and you would just like sit on the earth and you can read a book or you can, yeah, listen to something or whatever it is that allows you to rest and come into a relaxed space.
Mhm.
Wow. So where do we go from here?
Wherever you want to go.
So, how about menopausal or perimenopausal women and working with them? That's a big demographic here.
I personally don't have so much knowledge about the menopause because it's just something that I didn't went into deep, but maybe Keia knows something.
I also I've only worked with a few women in this way. A lot of it is the initial like request is symptom alleviation. And again, because the premenstrual syndrome, from what I understand, like when you're going into menopause, it's really that pause in the system, or that pause of the cycle. But it's said to last from like 5 to 20 years. It's not what we think is a small transition. It's said to be this very long process. And so, like, when you're having an onslaught of all these symptoms, it can be very much in discomfort. And a lot of these things are tied in with the autoimmune issues, the diet, how you're eating. Like Alyssa said, resting when you need to rest. The body and change and transition, like if you're looking at menopause as a life stage, in tradition in indigenous cultures, this is where you're entering into the elder stage, the wisdom keeper. You have now like been through the process of the maiden, the young woman, into the time of your bleed, and now you're going into the wisdom, the crone, the elder, the ability. And what this means is that your cycle, you no longer have to do the physical work. It's this transition to start doing more spiritual, into the connection with spirit and the connection with your ancestors, the very blood and lineage through your family and all these things. I'm not at that stage yet to say that I have the experience. I want to be completely authentic. most of my knowledge is from having worked with a few women that have been through the transition. Things that I find that are the most, like I said, are the symptom of alleviation. Again, I like to work with plant medicines in that way, yoni steams, different things that help in that practice with yoni steams are just, it's so potent and powerful to still nourish that cycle, to still stay on track with your own 28-day cycle, because the body is still living in that rhythm, even though the blood flow is not. And I've had even incredible teachers that have been way past the time of their blood and prayed so that they could bleed one more time for a ceremony, and it's happened. So the power of a woman is really like infinite. We're really just barely beginning to tap into like how far we can go with controlling our body through choice, and instead of, what I find to be the commonality of being the victim of menopause, finding that empowerment through the stage of like, what does this really mean? What can it be like? What can it look like? What are the things that are there to support? There's still the yoni egg practices. There's still breathing practices. There's yoni steams. There's plant medicines. There's moving into more of like shamanic practices and meditation, and also coming to a point where you can begin to teach that wisdom to the next generation. Honoring that life stage is what I find to be the most important. I feel that it's almost just like Alyssa was addressing earlier, where like our menses, our moon cycles have been looked at as something that's dirty. We're embarrassed, we're hiding it. We got to have secret little packets to put this little thing on and in. Like, I want to honor every woman that is entering into menopause. Like, you've done it. You've passed the childbearing ages. You're getting to the point where you've done the work, and now it gets to be easier. And the symptoms don't have to be so hard and visceral. There are so many helpers out there that in tools, through holistics, through alternative medicine, that can support your journey and all of that. I feel like the way that I'm taught through the grandmothers is that stage is the one to honor. It's like the children, to honor these stages like almost more than, the time of the bleed. The time of the bleed past the elder is like, they're the ones that carry the wisdom in their body. They've already been through the flower stage and the bleed stage, the childbearing stages, and into that transition, the fall of our own life, into the winter time, right? So to like, how can we best support and empower? And that's the way I feel like I would approach any woman facing menopause. Also with my authenticity, that, a lot of my understanding and knowledge is through just experience and through a lot of study. And I hope that, my stage someday in the future will be as reverent and as empowered and as honored as possible. And so, yeah.
Okay, we have a few minutes left here. We have about 7 minutes left. Is there something super powerful that you were going to bring tonight that you wanted to discuss that we haven't yet?
What about you?
Something that comes to mind now. I feel like there was maybe some more meat to this that we haven't even gotten into.
I feel like one thing that was coming through, what I would like to add, like just from my heart about the menopause thing, is if you're a woman and you're in your menopause right now, enjoy it. I feel menopause is just like one of the other things where, oh my God, it's so stressful, or and there are all of these different things. But really, what is happening with you is that you're coming from the stage from a woman into the wise woman. And the wise woman, as Keia already said, like is a woman who is honored and appreciated in the community for all of the wisdom that she has gathered over the years of her life, and really like honoring yourself in that state. And I know so many women are like, oh my God, I'm getting like wrinkles and I'm getting like old and like my hairs are getting gray, but that is so beautiful. Like one of the most beautiful women that I ever saw was old, because it's the wisdom stage, and like really honoring yourself for that, knowing that you're now entering in this state.
Thank you.
I feel something that is important that I look forward to sharing is the rites of passage for all these things.
Mhm.
You know, when we're talking about moving from pre-menses, you know, to our moon cycle, to menopause, to the wise woman, there's so many rites of passages that I feel we have an opportunity to rebirth as men and women, you know, of becoming the maiden, of becoming the warrior, the hunter, like these different stages of life, and, you know, becoming a man, becoming a woman in all these different ways. And, you know, a lot of these sacred rites and traditions, like there's many cultures that all have different traditions. There's many cultures that all have different heritages. And I guess what I want to leave, you know, maybe this podcast with is a seed of curiosity to all of you watching this and all of you listening, of like, take that, you know, time to kind of dive in. Who are you? What is your ancestry? What is your family line? And if you don't know, that's okay. You get to choose. Like, I really feel like we all get to choose what we're most drawn to. And perhaps there's a practice or ritual or rites of passage that you can rebirth in your life, or you can find a healer like Alyssa or myself to help facilitate for you. Whether it's in group ceremony for young women or individual basis in an intimate setting, these rites of passage are something that I really feel so passionate to bring back, that I feel like even if like it's not working with me or Alyssa, like create a ceremony for yourself. What does it look like, you know, to go into the elder stage, and how can you make this a holy and sacred event rather than just, oh, I'm getting older, you know, like what a blessing that you're getting older, like the trees that lose their leaves, you know, like it's like nature, like this is the natural rhythm and harmony that we're blessed to experience, when so many right now in our world are not, you know, through death and suicide and sickness and disease and suffering. We're living, we're still existing, and it can be better and more powerful and holy and sacred, and you get to determine how that is. The rites of passage, you know, it can be something as simple, if you're a man, like going out to the woods and spending like a 3-day 4-night, you know, 4-day 3-night camping solo retreat, to just drop in and find out, who are you, what do you want. It can be something as in-depth as finding a spiritual ancestral lineage and participating in a sacred ceremony such as a vision quest or sweat lodge. The rites of passage doesn't have to be anything, but it can be everything to you, however you choose to make it. It's about choosing to live that holy sacred life, a happy, healthy, holy life, you know, as Alyssa says, however you deem that possible. And every day can be ceremony around your moon cycle. Every day can be ceremony. But these rites of passage is like, perhaps there's a young woman in your life that you can
mentor.
Yeah, mentor into it, and like celebrate the coming of the moon cycle. And even if it's like dorky and obnoxious as, you know, a period party, like how beautiful. Like, I don't know very many women from my generation, my age group, and I'm in my 40s, that have a positive first period experience.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying? And that's just in having worked with a lot of women. And it breaks my heart. So how can we change that for the next generation coming up, the young ones? And how can we celebrate them and their life transitions? I mean, we have the poignant ones of like the first tooth, the first walk, the first, you know, day of school. And then it's like graduating high school, then it's marriage, then it's college. Like, how can we recreate a life that celebrates so much more about who we be, not what we do, right? Who are like our natural gifts, and as human beings, like the stages of, you know, of getting older, like is just so precious and holy. The first gray, like what if we did a first gray party? Like, I don't,
Right?
you know, but specifically going into the work, you know, of women, like celebrating the menses, you know, celebrating a young man coming into his puberty. I think these are very empowering, and we get to recreate this earth and empower these children coming up underneath us with specific life transformations where we can offer them tools that are necessary for the next life stage, whether that be, sorry.
Well, you're speaking, I mean, I think it's beautiful. What came to mind is that our society has sexualized our little girls.
Mm.
And that may not be the best thing our society is doing. And having something like this, red tents, rose tents, and raising our daughters and our granddaughters to cherish themselves and not exploit themselves in such a manner. So,
and I think that also goes for, like, it's so true. Young girls are exploited, but I think because I'm really huge into child advocacy, so forgive me for just a moment, but I also want to honor the young men that are also just as profoundly and grotesquely exploited, but much more in secret.
right.
And yeah, so like I'm gonna just send out some massive prayer energy right now on behalf of all of them. Like, we someday like not even have this in our conscious existence. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank both of you for coming on tonight.
Yeah.
It was a blessing. Thank you for watching. Where am I? Spiritual Alchemy Energy Transfigurations, the podcast with Keia and Alyssa and your host, Julie. Till next time, have a good night, everyone.
Good night. Blessings.
Ciao.
Ciao.